African. Truly African.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Pan-African TV. Welcome to Wednesday Palaver. This is a program primarily organized by the Socialist Forum of Ghana. You know, one of the many programs that the Socialist Forum of Ghana organizes as part of its educational drive, towards conscientizing all of us about socialism, about ideology, and about all the wonderful things that we need to aid our development. And by development, I mean progressive development. Because as a people, if we throw away our ideologies, who are we? Who are we? This evening, as part of the celebration of International Women's Day, we are focusing our conversation on the women's issue. And here, our theme for this evening's conversation is empowering the Ghanaian woman. Empowering the Ghanaian woman. We all know that every year in March, we celebrate women. We celebrate our efforts, our struggles. We remind ourselves of who we are, where we've come from, and where we intend to go. This year is no different. Again, for the 8th of March, we celebrated International Women's Day. And we insist as women that it's not just about a day, it's about a whole month. And so for the whole month of March, we celebrate ourselves as women, and we ask our counterparts, the men, to celebrate with us. The theme for this year's celebration is Choose to Challenge. Choose to Challenge. But like I intimated earlier, our theme for this evening is empowering the Ghanaian woman. I am privileged, very privileged this evening, to introduce a special. In fact, even here we don't call you guest of honor, because you are going to lead a conversation. So our lead conversationist for this evening is Madame Emilia Arthur. Let me start from the personal. Somebody that I know personally as a mother. Let me just leave it there. But I've had the privilege to work with her, and if for nothing at all, I can speak to her work ethic. However, a little, Google search gave me a little something that I like to read for those of us who don't know who she is. Emilia Arthur is a consultant and a former advisor to the President of Ghana from 2013 to 2017, where she assisted presidential appointees in aligning manifesto objectives with presidential objectives and specific sector policy goals. She took up this appointment after working as the Deputy Regional Minister for Ghana's Western Region, responsible for coordinating development. A member of the Balaton Group, Emilia now focuses on working collaboratively to strengthen communities autonomous and sustainable capacities for development and influence. Abena previously worked as the District Chief Executive of the Shama District in the Western region of Ghana. In the past, she has engaged in consulting and advocacy work in natural resource governance at the local, regional, and international levels, and served as the global team leader for the British Council's Interaction Leadership Program. I'll leave it here. There's so much more, but I think that this sort of tells us, perhaps all we need to know about Madame Emilia Arthur. She was appointed by former President John Evans Atta Mills, and she worked from 2013 to 2017. She refers to herself as a social development consultant. Let's welcome Madame Emilia Arthur.
Thank you very much, Mamiama, and thank you all for being here. As Mami said, the theme for our conversation, and I guess because everybody here is wearing their masks, I can remove mine and speak, and then when we have to interact, I put it back on. Okay, thank you very much. So the theme for our conversation this evening is empowering the Ghanaian women. And since I was told this theme, I've been pondering on the word empowerment. What does it mean to empower? Empowerment. Who is empowering who? Does it suggest that women have no power and somebody is going to empower them, or there's power that lies within, that somebody has to facilitate a recognition of that power? And what does empowerment really entail in terms of the advancement of womanhood, in terms of development of the country? What exactly is empowerment? So I'd like us to be thinking about that word as we go along in this conversation. I have been made to understand that I'll speak for about 10 to 15 minutes and then we would have some interactions. Again, Mamiama alluded to the theme for this year's International Women's Day, which is I choose to challenge. What are we challenging? What is it that we are challenging? Why are we making a statement of choosing to challenge? Is that a recognition of lack of equality and equity amongst the sexes, such that in the 21st century, it has become necessary for us still to be using languages such as challenging or empowerment? Also, since the pandemic broke, the international discourse has been about building back better. What does that also reflect? Building back better. Is there an acknowledgement that what we were doing previously was not good? And therefore, if after the pandemic we are building, then we are building back better. To achieve what? Now, coming back to the topic, empowering the Ghanaian women. It's important for us to understand the context within which we are having this conversation and the situation of the Ghanaian woman. Sometimes I feel like it's a paradox. In one breath, we are supposed to be very strong. In another breath, we are supposed to be very weak. I remember doing work, some research work, and I went to a palace in the Brong Ahafo region, then when it was Brong Ahafo region. And so as the chief was coming, we were seated before the chief walked in. I stood up as I had been told, the construct that had been built for me, that I needed to stand up and show respect to the chief. The chief said, "Sit down. You don't rise for a man." And I asked why. And he told me that womanhood carries earth, that women are powerful, that women are the ones that hold society together. Women are the ones that ensure that society moves from generation to generation. And therefore, women are supposed to be honored and not the other way around. And this was a traditional setting, and I was really intrigued about it. Let's go to the fishing community. When the man goes to shore, goes to beach to catch the fish, when the fisherman arrives at the beach, the woman takes over, determines the price of the fish, determines everything, whatever goes on, the management of the fish is a woman. So there, in that little economic activity, the woman seems to be powerful. But when the woman gets home and she assumes the role of the wife, then things change. That is the paradox that I think that in our context, we need to interrogate some more. Now, I think that if you go back to pre-colonial era, before colonialism, yes, granted that there were issues going on, there were differences going on. However, in those days, as societies, Ghanaian societies, African societies, there was no distinction made between a woman's reproductive rights and productive rights. There was never an issue for a woman to distinguish between reproductive rights and productive rights. Then came colonialism and the imposition of the Victorian values at that time that ensured that women were nothing but chattels owned by their husbands, and therefore women were not allowed. And the Victorian values I referred to was then, you know who our colonialists were? The British. At the time when we here and Yas and Twadems had fought at war, they come to impose on us a distinction between a woman's reproductive rights and productive rights, such that a woman was not allowed in the public sector. After a struggle and fight over that, it got to the point where then a woman may be allowed into the private sector, but you can't have a child. A public sector, but you can't have a child. Then after struggle, you got to the point where a woman may be allowed into the public sector, but after one child, you can't stay. We did not have anything like that before then. So you see how in many different ways, different interactions, and mind you, we had before then had the trans-Sahara slave trade, where the Arabs came through the Sahara Desert and came and took our people away. And we had then, after that, had transatlantic slave trade, where they came through the coast and the shores to take our people away. So we are a people whose development processes have been interfered many different times. And as we were evolving, then came the system also that put women where women were not supposed to be. And that has been the struggle that we have engaged in up to this point. So we get independent. And Kwame Nkrumah, if you know the independence story, Kwame Nkrumah worked with a lot of women to gain independence for Ghana. And I always like to say, when we start talking about women, that women are not a homogeneous group. We are not the same women. We are different categories of women, and our needs are different. And we experience things differently. We experience the inequalities and inequities in society differently. So when we are talking about women, let's be very careful that we don't lump all women together and talk about what women need. We need to be disaggregating and talking about different needs for different women. And therefore, whatever it is that we call empowerment, it is also done in a way that recognizes the different segments of women and their different needs and whatever has to be done for them. So here we come to a point where we have journeyed, we have had independence. Kwame Nkrumah has shown that change is possible. What did he do apart from the struggle with women involved to gain independence for Ghana? The first General Assembly, Parliament, when Ghana became a republic in 1960, a recognition, and I'm taking my time to talk about this because if way back in 1960, there was a leader that had a recognition that you can't go to war. If you have two hands going to war, You can't go to war and win when one hand is tied behind your back. They will beat you. You need to go with both arms. So if this is the man, this is the woman. So created seats in parliament, 10 seats for women to be in parliament. One would say that, oh, there are women everywhere. There are women in high places, positions and things like that. When we take our analysis of our political sector, take parliament, from the 10 seats that Kwame Nkrumah set for us in 1960, coming down. If I take just from 2008, there were 19 women in parliament out of 230 seats. 2012, 30 women out of 275. 2016, 34 women out of 275. 2020, now 40 women out of 275. Why? Because there's an issue of participation and representation. I need to participate in the process, and I need to be represented. Who is representing me, my interest, in this big space called politics? Let me also say that the fact that a woman is there does not necessarily mean that the woman is representing me, because my needs may be different, because I belong to a different, say, class. Where do we find most women? We find most women in Ghana and in other places. Most women are the bottom of the lower class, or mostly in the informal sector, or at the bottom of the formal sector. So if you find one or two women at high up level, go and represent, go to in a particular space, occupy a particular space, and is representing me and does not have an understanding or appreciation of my issues at a different level, then it does not necessarily mean that that woman is representing me. However, it is important that there is participation of both sexes in that arena, in that space, so that the issues that concern women at least can be raised. So as a people, as a country, we have not done well at all. That if you take a seat of 275, there are only 40 women there. Let's go to the place that for me, in terms of our development discourse, matters the most, is the local assembly level. The DCE levels, the assembly members level. Take a look. Very few women appointed as DCEs. Very few women get elected as assembly members. But your community, the assembly area, the electoral area, the unit committee is your most basic, the unit committee level is your most basic unit for development. That is where we are discussing the scarce resources that we have and how to apportion those resources for development. So if a part of your people that matter are not present there in that conversation, in that decision making, what do you think is happening? In the meantime, women are managing societies, women are managing homes, women are ensuring that generation after generation moves on. So if we are not there in those spaces, then what do you think is happening? And it is not surprising that we are where we are, still where we are with our development. When the pandemic broke, who did it affect the most? Women. And especially with feminization of poverty, women are more poor than men. Forget about, in most places, women are not allowed to own land or own property and all of those things. So the things that are necessary for economic development, for economic empowerment, most times the door is shut to women. But when the pandemic broke, because of feminization of poverty, women suffered the most. At the same time, some of the very interesting, innovative, inspiring ways of dealing with the issues or coming out of the issues came from women. When we had the lockdown and food crops could not come, and there was actually food shortages in Accra and in the urban areas, and also increase in prices, was a group of women in the food industry innovatively came to agreement, had a consensus, built consensus, decided that they will share amongst themselves to reduce or minimize personal contact. The people who will go and bring the food from the hinterlands break bulk, the people who will retail it, people who will take it to the market. It happened. And that's how come people in the urban centers like me, like you, got food to eat. Who acknowledges that? In fact, government even attempted to get the private sector to take over that process, but it didn't work. Who acknowledges these women who did that? Who acknowledges the women who, because again, the way our system is, because of inequalities and inequities, most of these women just happen to be the ones who are in the front lines of the health service delivery. So you have most of our women as nurses, as community health nurses. When the pandemic broke and they did not have PPEs, they were out there in the forefront helping out. So, ladies and gentlemen, so that there's enough time for our conversation, I'll take questions and then we'll have a conversation. I think that for real empowerment to happen, one, there should be the recognition of the disparity of opportunities between the sexes and a continued struggle for equality in opportunities, equality among the sexes within the political, social, and economic spaces where we all operate. Now, it is also important that we recognize the kind of development paradigm that will bring us the required change. The current development paradigm has not done it and will not do it. It will not address all the different inequalities and inequities that exist, including the empowerment of women. So I would not like a discussion of the empowerment of women devoid from the kind of development paradigm that is required, that is necessary for us to move forward as a people and for us to progress. Women matter. So is the development paradigm that we operate matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Emilia Arthur. Well, let me quickly remind us, everybody who sent messages to our Facebook page about not having access to Pan-African TV, let me remind you to re-scan your TV set to get Pan-African TV. We are facing a little challenge. We've been facing this challenge since this morning, but it won't be a challenge, as long as you re-scan your TV set and hopefully get Pan-African TV, perhaps not on the same channel, but on a just rescan, you will get Pan-African TV. Also, let me remind those of you who are watching us at home that the number to join the conversation by is 026-084-6539. That's 026-084-6539. Do send us a message, if you have a question or a comment for Madam Emilia Arthur. At this point, I'd like to read a few of the messages that have popped up on our Facebook feed. This one is from Ben Ichampon, and he says, "Good work done. Manifest Ghana says, there is no signal at my place." Manifest, please can. John Teye says, "Congratulations. Watching you live from Sierra Leone." Hey. Right. Manifest again since morning. Yes, we know. Rescan your TV, Manifest. Nyamiche Steven says, "Watching you live from Tanaso, Kumasi." Nyamiche Steven. And then, of course, there are messages from Pan African TV asking everybody to rescan their TV set. Right. We are here at the point where we get to make this as interactive as possible. So of course I like to say hello to all the beautiful faces and handsome faces in the studio with us right now, and to call on anyone who has any questions or comments to come to the microphone. So who should we start with? Why are the questions too much for Auntie Emilia that you can't decide which one comes first? I know you are by name, so we can do this nicely. Yes, sure, please come. Let's clap for her.
Good evening, viewers out there. I've really enjoyed the conversation, what they started doing. But I just want to digress a bit. Culturally, in Africa, we are supposed to, we talked about the continuation of the human race, that women actually have to bring forth children and the rest to continue with the human race. To digress, can we say the process or the usage of LGBT or whatever you call it can be an affront to womanhood, looking at the culture of Africa or Ghanaians? Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Yeah. Sure.
Thank you, Auntie Emilia. Good evening to our viewers out there. I think that there is a problem with our system, the system we operate in Ghana here. If you look at the statistics, males share with females almost 50-50. So if you have that kind of representation, how come our political leadership and even economic leadership does not enforce or create a platform for women to be at the same level with the men? If you look at Parliament, for instance, we have 275 constituencies, and out of it, about 40 are females, which is almost about 14%. It is very small. I think that we can do better as a country, but being better as a country will depend on all of us here, especially the young ladies out there who are listening. Man up. Don't be afraid. Don't get intimidated. Man up, and some of us will support you, because some of us believe that the only way the world can be better will be through empowering women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Emilia, for that insightful presentation. You spoke about the distinction of women and their representation, and I was very happy about that distinction that you made. But I want to find out the 40 members of Parliament who are women, where will you classify their representation within these two distinctions that you made? The second point I want to make is when you mentioned, and it's in relation to the topic, women empowerment, that who empowers who. I think we identified clearly that under patriarchy, power belongs to a certain group, and that must be clear. And because power belongs to a certain group, power must be taken from that group if we want to empower women. But it is also important to mention that men under a system of patriarchy are powerful, and because they are powerful, they are not ready to renege that power. They are not ready, nobody gives power out because they are enjoying that power that they have. So they are not ready to give it out freely. So it must be taken by some form of force, and also to say that it is because of the fragile ego of men that makes it difficult for them to give out this power. And I would like to appeal to men that the system in which we operate is imbalanced, is unequal, it doesn't make sense, and that if we truly care about our country, we should be ready to be conscious about how men manifest power every day. And it comes in very, very little ways, you know, and that if you let go of our fragile egos, we will be able to, at a certain pace, enforce this equality that we are talking about. Thank you very much.
Well, at this point, I would give the microphone back to Auntie Emilia to answer our questions. Get the rest of your questions ready for the next batch.
Thank you, Mami, and thank you for the interesting comments and questions. Man up. How about woman up?
I thought about it when I was living.
So you see, even in our lingua, even in our language, and you meant well, you spoke well, you challenged why there are only 40 women out of 275 in parliament and what the political parties are doing. Yet in your consciousness, the language is the language of men. Man up. Woman up, sisters. Let's woman up. And thank you very much for that. So that's something the political parties have to do. There's a certain consciousness that we must all, there's some awakeness is necessary. And it does not just happen overnight. It has to be, so some of the things Socialist Forum stands for, it has to be a consistent, systematic way of debunking. We need a reconstruct, and that has to happen. And it must be obvious to us that the way it has been done so far has not yielded the required results. About LBQT and all of that, it's all about rights. The fundamental issue we are talking about here, whether it is women, people living with disability, the vulnerable in society, or a group of other people, human beings who stand up and hold a claim to a particular right. It's about a fundamental recognition of people's rights. How people define themselves or define their sexual orientation or what have you is not what is of interest to me. What is of interest to me is, as human beings, do we have rights? And the issue of people having a different sexual orientation to yours in terms of either being man or woman does not have anything to do, or does not, I struggle to see how that affects building of society. Oi. Okay. So I don't know why that huge clap, but I take it. I must be saying something very sensible here. Okay. So the point I'm making is that, and as soon as we start talking about gender rights, women's rights, equality of opportunities, equality and equity between the sexes, and then the issue of LGBTQ plus I plus comes in, then there is a confusion being created. But fundamentally, it is about rights, human rights. No matter sexual orientation, what is right, period. If a man, it's good for a man to have access to a certain level of education, it is also good for a woman to get the same access of education. Give it. So it is important the kinds of governments we put in place. So for example, there's a lot of talk about children don't go to school around the coastal areas, or the cocoa growing areas, but go there and understand. In my development work up in the north, I have seen a mother walk into a classroom holding the hand of an older child, walks into the class, takes the hand of holding the hand of a younger child, takes the hand of the older child who is in class, puts the younger one there, and walks out with the older one because she needed the older one as help on the farm. What about creating an education program that recognizes that as apprenticeship, as vocational training, because the woman, if she doesn't take her son to go and help her in the farm, she has to hire farm hands. She doesn't have money to pay. It's important that we understand our context. It is important to understand why a government will build a huge school, community day school, for example, in a remote area. Because without that school, lots of your children, they are not going to go to school. And if the parents have to make a decision between the boy and the girl who can go to stay with Wafata so he can get education, it's going to be the boy and not the girl. So the school is built there so that the girls can go to school. That is empowerment of women. That is women's empowerment. It's not about just saying it. It's about actions. It's what is done to prove that you actually care about that. The distinction between the 40 women in parliament. The distinction can be done on many variables. Levels of education, geographical representation, where the constituencies of the women are. So when you look at the 40 women in parliament, they cut across the regions in Ghana. I know one, for example, who is an architect. I know one who is a lawyer. But they also are from the base. They actually went to the base and went to work at the base, identified with the base identified with them and voted for them. So the distinctions cannot be made just on face value. The distinctions are complex, and the distinctions are based on many variables, as I have said earlier. What matters most is, are these women serving the people who brought them to parliament? Are they meeting whatever aspirations? But interestingly, are the same questions asked of the men in parliament? In fact, sometimes you hear, we want women representation, and then they will say, I agree with women representation, but not this woman. What about that man? Who also sat in parliament for God knows how long and never spoke and never did anything, and when you put the mic to the person's mouth, asamaba. What about that man? When it comes to men, as if there's no standards are required, but when it comes to women, then suddenly standards matter. And, excuse me, we did not drop from Jupiter. This community made us. It requires a balance in development. Do you think that the young, energetic, strong, beautiful northern girls who come to Agbogloshi and sleep on the roadside and get raped, and on the streets are 3 generations of children, you think they like that? Do you think they like that? I remember some time ago when there was talk about gold had emerged somewhere in the north. By the next day, Accra was empty of all these young boys and girls from the north. They had gone. If we develop the north, if we have proper development planning in place, if we meet the aspirations of the people, they won't come here. A government that is into corruption is not. So you can tout that you are pro-women, you are pro-gender, you are whatever, but you engage in corrupt activities such that the small money that should have gone into some community to provide drinking water so that the mother and children will be safe, you don't do it, you are not empowering women. If you do not build the hospitals, and women go to hospitals to perform, or women go to perform their natural of giving birth, of sustaining life, of growing society, generations after generations, and they die from maternal then you are not empowering women. Then you are not about empowering women. You can create ministries, you can appoint people, but if you are not investing in people, you are not investing in social development, the way that supports women, takes care of women's needs, if you are not constructing the roads such that the poor farmer, you know what? Do you know that 80% of food crop farmers are women? So Ghanaian women are the ones who are responsible for our nutrition and our food and our eating. Go and check whether they have access to credits, to loans. Go and check how much of our agric policies really reflects this reality and really supports women. So if you have not constructed the road from the farmland to town, and the woman toils, and the plantain pros on what kind of food then at the farm gate, at the farm gate, or some woman in a different, you know what I'm saying, categorization, is able to get struck and go and buy it cheap. What have you done for women's empowerment? You can go to all the conferences in the world. You have not done anything. Patriarchy is so true. And your description of what it means is absolutely spot on. I have power. That is why I started by asking the question about what empowerment really means. I have power. In me, inherent of women is power, latent power. Oh, you realize that you die before us. There's power. We are powerful. However, patriarchy and the thing I talked about earlier has made it such that we don't seem to think we have power, or we don't have power. I feel sorry for men. Do you know why? Society has made you King Kong. Society says you should pay the rent, you should buy the cars. Society says you should pay the school fees. Society says you should do everything. Most na more bread. Share more bread. Share. Let's share the power. Recognize me as a partner. Okay? It is not about women wanting to take all of men's power and men are powerless and all that thing that came up earlier on around the Beijing conference and what have you. No, that's not what it's about. It is that we are partners together. There's power in me. You can never get pregnant. Just away, Papa no cry no so one above one anything. Okay. Our biological roles are what they are. But our productive prowess and things are different. And it is important that we recognize that. Okay? So, how do we take away power, so to speak? Which is not a language I like to use, but at this moment I can't think of any better way of putting it. Ladies, nobody will give us power. We have to take it ourselves. We have to create the spaces where we can be powerful ourselves. I remember growing up and seeing what was going on around me. And I guess I learned it from my mother. People have asked me oftentimes where I got this thing from. And when you ask them what this thing is, they will say this ding and doing political work and activism and things. I said, growing up, I saw my mom just be. It was how I saw her being is how I thought is the way to be. And it's about questioning things. It's about standing up for something. It's about choosing to challenge. And that is how I have operated. In fact, until I went to University of Science and Technology, I did not fully appreciate the inequalities between men and women because it was hall elections. And I realized that women never were supposed to contest for hall president. It was always for some other role, but never hall president. that treasurer something. That was my first introduction to inequality and things. Trust me, I challenged that process. But what I'm saying is that there must be a certain consciousness and a continuous debate about equity and equality of power. And women must be in those spaces where we can exhibit and exercise the power that we have. So sometimes, because of the state in which you are, somebody has to facilitate the process for you to become conscious. Somebody has to give you information for you to realize that, oh, I have power, I have to rise and use this power. And sometimes there's also just this awakening one day that, may I am home. Ma sorry. Chobe.
We have some 15 minutes to go. Let me correct the text line. It's 0544 235984. That's 0544 235984. So if you have any messages, please do well to send them here. Right. I'll read a few more of the messages on Facebook. Zan Jacob says, how can there be a man without a woman? Now this, I think that this should interest you. This message is from Chichi Opoku, and it's written in brackets from Kwesi, and the message is simply well done. I'm sure that this will be your best message this evening. This one is from Abubakar Usman, and he says, congratulations, watching you live in Dubai. Albert Haddon says, enjoying the topical discussions from Sierra Leone. Vincent Kingsford Beidu says, good evening, Pan-African TV. He gives us the thumbs up, and the fabulous sign. I'm watching your program live in Germany, and it is very nice. Right, it's a very nice program. Then he gives us a two-shot. Zan Jacob says, by divine design, there won't be a meaningful life without women. That's why Almighty God himself, realizing this, by his predestination, created Eve to fill Adam's handicap, give her the opportunity, and should perform to push man up beyond expectation. Suppress her, and you are not only limiting her talent, but also taking your own development many years back. Prophet Muhammad said, marrying a woman and being good to her guarantees a man 50% of his faith. That's the power of women. Nana Afra Entry says, good evening. Thanks for your great service to Mother Ghana. I think until we women stand up for our rights and show better leadership, things will begin to change. Like here in Iceland, they have consciously built their women up, and the women have shown their relevance when it comes to leadership in developing the country. Iceland has elected prime ministers, police chief, and so many governmental institutions who have women as leaders, and they are respected and applauded. So let's learn to stand up for our rights. Greetings from Iceland. I'll leave the first word. Now, Mbaya Damba says, I am watching with my wife live in Paris. That makes us very happy here. Thank you for all our international viewers. We are grateful. We have just about 10 minutes. So if we could keep, right. Blaze, you have another question. So quickly, so we know who comes. And then there's Makiza, and then there's Ivy, and then there's the man in yellow. Forgive me for forgetting your name. So we'll take Blaze first, Makiza second, Ivy. We'll take you, and then Antimia will round up nicely for us. One at a time, please.
Thank you very much. Comrade Emilia, I'm coming back on your response to my first question. I'm coming back because then it's like we are not on the same page. Okay. You said women were not a homogeneous group. And then you also mentioned the issue of class. So the question I asked was that these 40 women in parliament, which class of women do they represent? And
they represent.
yes, yes.
Not who they are.
No. Yeah. And I'm saying that because we are celebrating International Women's Day. And today, those we hail, as strong women, as powerful women, are the women who are superintending over economic system that affect women the most. So, and I agree with you entirely that women, when we are talking about the equality of women, then we are not putting all women under the same box, because there are women whose actions, whose role in the system of capitalism affects women the most. And I think that it's important for us to draw the distinction. And I mentioned the history of International Women's Day because the factory women who started this day, when we celebrate the day, we don't even mention them. We are talking today about the general of the managing director of WTO. They are now the heroes of women, which should not be the case. When we talk about women, we are talking about working class women, who have advanced the cause of women and who, are within a certain class of society. Thank you very much.
Okay, Auntie Emilia, good evening, and good evening to everyone watching us. So I've loved every bit of the conversation, but I want to talk about how the young class 1 girl, or the young girl watching us right now, we can move away from waiting for them to grow up before we empower them. How about she has a voice already when she's a little girl? Because over the years, the role of a woman has been paired with the societal expectations that she acts as a homemaker and a caretaker. Honestly, what is the way forward? I'm bothered about that. So, thank you.
Good evening to our cherished viewers. Thank you, Madam Emilia. You couldn't have said it any better. I want to know, how can we clear the notion or conception of gender roles in our society?
Thank you very much, Madam. Like, in your presentation, you said that when the pandemic broke, the number of women were affected the most. Then I want to know, in what ways are women affected the most? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to start with you. So, in terms of acknowledging women, we acknowledge and celebrate all women who have shattered the glass ceiling. And so, for WTO, that institution, today in the 21st century, have a woman leading it, we celebrate it. In the same way, we celebrate those hard-working Agbogloshi young women. In the same way, we celebrate those fishmongers. We celebrate all women who have shattered the glass ceiling. And you know what? The glass ceilings differ from woman to woman, from context to context. Some might be that they were never ever supposed to go beyond SHS, but today they have second degree. They have shattered that ceiling. We appreciate them and we celebrate them. Some were abused in marriages. Some were abused in homes. They were able to liberate themselves and get out of those abusive situations. We celebrate them. We applaud them. These 40 women members of parliament, that only 40 of them made it to parliament, we celebrate them. The hard work, The process of getting elected in this country is not easy. Oh, there are many other things that one is a different topic for another time. You know what I'm saying? But your question, the fundamental thing I was hearing was, who are these 40 women representing? Are they representing their own interests, or they are actually representing women in their constituencies, or they are representing all of the people in their constituencies? That is a question that I do not have empirical evidence answer to. But I want to assume that all these women are there to represent the different categorization of women in their constituencies. Because mind you, in their constituencies are different women from different classes. The more rural, then the more women in a particular class, more than another women from another class. But again, whether they're actually there to represent their own personal interests or all this, we have to do research, and I will make you the leader of the research team. So we'll follow these 40 MPs from now till the end of their term. Is that a project that Socialist Forum might be interested in? I don't know. The convener and the person who put me here. But also to say that when we have women in such positions, they need a lot of support, because it is not easy. Balancing that whole space of being an MP, being the excellent MP, managing home, managing children, managing constituency, managing party expectations, foot soldiers' expectations, is a delicate thing, and our women need support so that there will be more in that space. Why are there no more? What do we have to do for our young people? One of the reasons is because of how dirty and nasty being in the political space is. So lots of young women don't want to be in it. But preparing the young people, can we start with the content of our educational curriculum? Because some of the curriculum, the books that Kwesi is playing football, Amma is sweeping. Class 1, Sani had started. So that is how this girl is being socialized in school. But can we also have pictures? I've seen some pictures of that thing that they do in school. Professional, they dress as a professional. You see, some of them dress, most of the girls are dressed as nurses and things like that, and the boys are dressed as, thank you, presidents and things like that. So that when you ask your child, when you grow up, what will you want to become? A president. And when you ask them, you know what, except my son who says he'll be a motorbike rider. When he grows up, he wants to be a motorbike rider. So we have to start from there. We also have to start from our home. But like they say, physician, heal thyself. If my consciousness is not right, how am I raising the child at home? If me myself, I don't understand that the thing is wrong, it has to change. How am I raising my child at home? Like the child does something, needs to be disciplined. The mother says, you wait, your father will come. Over time, you are telling the child that you can't discipline. Mothers don't discipline children. It's fathers who discipline. Should be an hour. You know what I'm saying? So we have to start early. We have to change so that we can change the next generation coming. And we have to get our education system correct. We have to be careful what our children are watching in the media. And with technological advancement these days, and plus the pandemic that now, I had a rule in my house. You don't watch anything till weekend. But now he's doing virtual school, so he's watching the thing. So the thing has changed. You know what I'm saying? So there's a consciousness that is required. Affirmative action is also required. And sometimes when you raise affirmative action, and I don't know how much time we have, when you raise affirmative action, then people have issues with it. Affirmative action is necessary because if we are journeying together, but because of circumstances and conditions and what have you, have worked against me such that I am far behind, then you put in place some programs and processes so that I can come and catch up with you. In parts of, I think in the UK, not too long ago, they had to have affirmative action for boys going to school because boys were not going to school. So if what Kwame Nkrumah did in putting 10 women in parliament was affirmative action, when we see the likes of us in places that we are not supposed to be, then we realize that, oh, we can go there, we can get there. That is why affirmative action is necessary. But I also believe in merit. I want to get there on my own merit. But if it's difficult for me to get there because of stumbling blocks, then something can be done to aid me to get there. As I'm being aided to get there, I am working also in such a way that I'm clearing the stumbling blocks so that others can now come freely. Okay. How do we clear the notion of gender roles? That's another conversation altogether. I want to be a woman. No matter what you do, I want to be a woman. I still want to be a woman. You know what I'm saying? Some preacher was preaching and saying that women, if men say they are the head, leave them alone. You women, you are the neck. Depending on the direction you turn your neck, the head is following. So, and why not? You see, when at home, I don't mind cooking for my husband, but he doesn't lord it over me. That by all means I have to cook, and if I haven't cooked fresh food and things, he won't eat. No, he will go to the kitchen himself, go get something and eat. It does not diminish him. It does not make him less of a man. You know what I'm saying? So I will cook. If I have to cook, I will cook. If the man knows how to cook and he can also, my best friend, my closest friend in this world, her husband is the one who cooks in the house and we all go and eat. When he cooks, it's nicer than when she cooks. And please don't get me wrong, this is even a man from the north of this country. He's emancipated. They have a happy union. I'm telling you, they have a happy home. Their children are growing up happily. Because they see mommy do, daddy do, we all do together. I show respect as defined, as I like. What is respect for me may not be respect for you. So define what is respectable for you. I will show it. I will show for you too. But if you get up and you say that my place is the kitchen, and that even when visitors come and they are talking, I shouldn't talk some. I should go and cook and bring. And they're very 11 to case. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. Again, our education system, our churches, our mosques, what role modeling is going on, what are we seeing, what are we hearing? And then we need to educate ourselves as young people, young women. Because sometimes so when we hear the thing, then we take it like a World Cup. And we don't understand it fully. We don't educate ourselves. Then we're so funny at the trimmers near the corner. Now that them won't I walk alone. You know what I'm saying? Okay. In what ways? And is it time?
Yeah. No.
So I have to.
Just take a few.
Okay. No, because the thing about how, in what way did the pandemic affect women? I said that yes. All over the world, it may not be as much in Ghana because we didn't really go through the lockdown well and things. Where do you find women most in terms of work? They are caregivers, okay? They are at the very bottom in the formal sector. They are mostly in the informal sector. So when the pandemic broke, most of these women lost jobs instantly. They lost jobs. But then work at home increased for them. Now everybody was at home. If the household had, say, 10 people that would go, and I'm using the working class, that would go out to work and things like that. Now they were all home. Pressure was on her. She had to take care of all these people, the home, food. Do you know what also went up? Domestic violence. In the pandemic, the lockdown, domestic violence went up. And, sorry? Abuses, yes. Abuses, domestic violence. Women had to live with their abusers. At least before the pandemic, she could go away, the man too will go. They will meet in the evening. So even if it's a slap, it's once a night. Now they are all persistent. There were lots of rapes. There were lots of incest. Uncles taking the little young ones and things. Lots of women were, especially the women in the frontline health delivery services, the nurses, what have you. They didn't have PPEs, but they were out there. Governments failed to give them the appropriate protective equipment, but they were still out there. So most of them were infected. Women suffered. And again, as I said, because poverty has been feminized, once there's a phenomenon, that means that poverty rises, more women, it affects more women naturally. And at the end of the day, as a society, we lose. So in fact, empowering women, making women go ahead, is to the benefit of the entire society. So why are you fighting it? Now, I'd like to end here by thanking you all and also say that there are some men who are more gender conscious than women. So it is not being a feminist or gender sensitive. It's not about your sex. It's not about whether you're a man or woman. It's about your consciousness. And there are some men who are more conscious than women. So we applaud the men who are with us on this journey. We thank you. Bring on board more of your men, and together we'll work to bring the change. I'd like to close with a Southern African concept of leadership. You might have heard that a lot. It's Ubuntu. Ubuntu. And Ubuntu simply means that I exist because you exist, because we all exist. I am inextricably linked to you. You do me good, you do yourself good. You do me bad, you do yourself bad. You hurt me, you hurt you. You raise woman, you raise yourself. We support ourselves, we grow together. Ubuntu.
Thank you so much, Madam Emilia Arthur, for leading, a very insightful conversation, as always, about women and about the development of women in Ghana, particularly. Like I said before, the whole of March is dedicated to us as women, for us to continue to choose to challenge. It's a choice that we make every day, in every little thing that we do, that we continue to choose to challenge ourselves, to own up, own the spaces that we enter, to flourish, to boss up, to be the best versions of ourselves. Yes, to woman up, be the best versions of ourselves, for ourselves, and for posterity. Thank you so much, Auntie Emilia. Thank you, those of you in studio. Thank you, those of you watching us at home. Thank you, those of you who joined us via social media, through text messages, and through WhatsApp. Next week, we are back with another woman issue. We are taking up the whole of March. Socialist Forum of Ghana, take note. All of March. We will leave you 1 week in March, not one Wednesday. So next week, we are back again, talking women. Thank you so much, Auntie Emilia. Thank you for watching Pan African TV. Stay with us. Bye.